Hello, hello. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another LinkedIn Labs. And you know what we do here? We figure out what exactly is going on in people's outbound motion and their teams and run their experiments and see what's happening. For everybody else that is going to tune in today, let us know where you're tuning in from and what's going on. And also, this is I always have a random question of the day. What is your favorite late night snack? Just throwing it out there. What is your favorite late night snack? But again, if you're tuning in, let us know you're tuning in from. You're back here for another LinkedIn Labs. We have Jill here today, and we're just gonna break down what's actually working in terms of inbound for her team and what you should not be doing, and give you all some insights on what you can do start next week. So, Jill, if you would like to introduce yourself and tell us what your favorite late night snack is as well.
Oh, geez. I've been trying to avoid late night snacks. I'm not going to lie,
I
but
get it.
I feel like because of that, I'm intentional to make better choices. So I've been munching a lot on baby carrots and then almonds and cashews, which I don't know how healthy they are in mass quantities, but it's better than a bag of potato chips.
It's definitely back. I can't even buy them anymore because, especially if I go to Costco and I'll get like the big bag and I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah, that's
I'll eat
forever.
this over a month and I eat it in 2 days. It's really, really bad. Don't recommend that. So, okay, baby carrots, do you eat them at ranch is the real question. And then the
I like
almonds, is it regular almonds or like the smokehouse almonds? It's also another important question.
Very important. Yes. I'm not a ranch fan. I wouldn't say I hate it, but I'm not one of those people that just like slops ranch on everything. So
Yeah.
I'll go to hummus. I'll do hummus, or I actually did Italian dressing the other day. A little messy because it's a little watery. So I don't know that I suggest it, but
Yeah.
that's what I will dip it into. And then as far as the nuts, dry, roasted, and salted. Can't
Okay.
go wrong. Can't go wrong.
Okay, I always go. I've gone like roasted smokehouse. I even tried Trader Joe's had it was like buffalo
Oh my goodness.
heat ranch. It was crazy.
I'll have to try that. Trader Joe's
Yeah,
is the
it
best.
was.
You
It
always
was.
find your little surprises there.
Yeah, it was. I was just like, what in the world is going on? So, but it was actually like pretty good though. I'm not gonna lie. So
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was. I
that's
wasn't mad at it. I wasn't mad at it. Cool. Well, today we're talking about outbound. And everyone tuning in, if you have some commentary on this as well, let us know what your take is on this question. But for you, Jill, what are the three things that people should stop doing when it comes to outbound, or things you see on LinkedIn that like needs to stop immediately?
So I guess starting with LinkedIn, I feel like a lot of people are taking shortcuts. And what I mean by that is I think there's pressure. I think people worry about vanity metrics and the volume that they're sending, and then they're actually compromising the content. And I say this from my perspective where I used to love getting prospected, reading LinkedIn, reaching back out. I'm an SDR lover, so I want to pay it forward and at least give them whatever they're looking for if I can. But when I see your profile caught my eye, or I hope all is well, and just these same generic terms, I feel like I am just, a check off. I don't think there's any intention behind that. And it's actually steered me away from reading them. And it's just the same message. I loved your profile and you'd be a good fit for this and that, and insert my product and pitch here. And it's just, what? Like, it just is so vanilla. And then it's asking for my time. Where's the value? I'm running a team. Do you know how valuable my time is? Why should I give it to you when there's no meat to your message? Sometimes I'm like, what do you offer? I don't even know what their pitch is. So I think it's lack of clarity and just lack of that personal touch. So that's one big thing on LinkedIn. And then that also can complement back into emails. Like if I get that email and I see that little snippet on the top, if it's something that I get 50 times per day along the lines of those examples I shared, you're just screaming almost desperation. I don't know. Like, what do you think?
I have a lot of thoughts here. That's loaded question. This is gonna be like an
I
hour
know, right?
rant across the board. So I agree with all your sentiment. Also, as well, for everyone tuning in, the question goes to you for you all too. What are you all seeing in your inbox, and what are you seeing that you're tired of that people need to stop doing? We'd love to hear in the chat. And then, before I answer the question, I have to shout out Nicole here. Shout out to Nicole for coming in. We talked like a couple months ago, but also Captain Crunch is the best cereal, in my opinion. This is a different conversation now. I know we're not here to talk about cereal, but I have to go on this quick like podium real quick is like Captain Crunch is the best cereal that was ever made by far. It's like it's not even close.
It's like
Okay,
pure
that's
sugar poison. Like I feel like your mouth gets cut up chewing through it when the milk hasn't sunk in yet.
no.
Like,
You're not eating it right. You're not eating
no.
it right. Captain Crunch is great because once you're done with the cereal, the milk tastes so good from the Captain Crunch. I don't know
Pure
a better.
sugar.
Look, I know
Sorry,
it's
this is
you're
like the
actually
mom. I have a
pudding.
4-year-old, so this is the mom coming out in me where I'm like, oh, too much sugar. You're gonna be hyper. Your tummy's
Look,
gonna hurt.
you and my mom would get along. She basically would not allow me to buy Captain Crunch anymore. I can't eat. Like it's like now I can get it if I wanted to, but like yeah, she was like, you can't eat Captain Crunch. You're doing way too much. So that's my whole thing. I think Captain Crunch is the best. I don't know if anyone agrees with me. Nicole sounds like she does, but no one else does. But what am I seeing? I think I don't know how I feel. I don't know how I feel about this in terms of like how like in sentiment of how other people feel about it, but I have a strong feeling is that like I don't like people trying to like snake their ways into meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is like disingenuous intros. And I'm also saying this isn't like I've tried this approach earlier in my career to be like, hey, saw you go to this college. Did you see the game last night? And then all of a sudden I'm trying to sell you on a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I see this happening, and I don't know if I like this behavior. If someone sees differently, I'm obviously open to the conversation. But I think the biggest thing people try to make is like try to come in like a passive aggressive way instead of just being like, "This is why I want to talk to you," or ask a question that's pointed to why I want to talk to you based on your observation or research. So I think that that's one. I think there's a time and place on how you could intro that, but I think people try to be so disingenuous on the approach. I think that's a thing. I think two is people try to jump so fast to AI and automation without validating a hypothesis or a message that's good. So I just see a lot of messages that are like AI slop, and I think that's a big mistake. Is people are trying so hard to automate and do things so fast that they didn't take the time to learn the fundamentals of what a good message is, similar to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the third thing that I see as a mistake is people not even updating their own profiles on LinkedIn. So even if they're sending good messages, their profile's not good. So people may be like, I don't even know if this person, I don't have clarity on what this person does because their profile has no clarity. So I think those are a lot of things on that. I think a bonus thing I'd say is that people are like afraid. I think people are just afraid to make calls and talk to people too, and just hiding behind stuff. I don't think that helps you.
Interesting. I'm actually glad you brought that up because that's another thing that irks me, like the non-relevant personalization. Like, oh, Jill, you went to college here. Take a demo of my software. Like, my college has nothing to do
Yeah,
with the potential value that your software could provide me, my team, or my role. And likewise, what grinds my gears is if you take a meeting with me, then I'll take a meeting with you. And that happens more like very
that's wild work
Oh, it
actually.
happens all the time. And it's like, why? There's nothing in it. Like, that is just cool. Like, maybe you'll get a meeting quota and I'll hit a meeting quota, but why? That's not a buyer. And it drives me insane. And I tell my SDRs all the time, I go, shut it down. Ask and probe if there's an actual reason and need and pain and challenge we can solve for, book it. But we're not here to do favors. Favors doesn't bring in revenue. And I'm not going to fake numbers on BS meetings like that. But sorry, it drives me nuts.
No, I
Don't do
know.
that. Do not do that.
Meeting for a meeting is crazy work. I
Mhm.
highly suggest nobody to actually do that. Like that's
Mhm.
not the move. But for everybody in the chat, curious on what grinds your gears and what you get upset on. But we have those are the things that are mistakes. I don't know why people still do the hope all as well. I genuinely have no idea why. Like it upsets me so much because like I don't get it. But we do have a question from AJ, and I want to bring this up because this is leading into what should we do? So the question here is if I could only send one message to 100 CEOs or 100 messages to one CEO, what's working better in 2025?
I don't think either of those approaches would work.
I mean, basically, your face sounds like either. So, okay, so what would you do instead of these two approaches?
I mean, you have to be strategic. I personally don't think any of those are strategic because I don't think one email would suffice a proper outbound follow up and intention to get a meeting. And then likewise, could you imagine C-level or not, if you got 100 emails from one person, you would drive me nuts. I don't care what you are offering me. That's just way, way, way too much. That's like harassment. So if I personally don't think either would be effective, but it's all about that, like you said, that multi-channel approach. It shouldn't just be emails. I do believe in phone calls. I know you mentioned you feel the sentiment is some folks might be nervous or hesitant to jump on the line. You got to push through those nerves, and also again use. There's other ways that you can be better with LinkedIn.
Yeah, I would say one of the things as well is that,
Sorry,
yeah, no, you're good. I'd
I
say
lost internet. I'm back.
I was like, all right, drop the mic. So one of the things though as well is this is something I would encourage you all to do. And yeah, this is going to be manual and things of that nature. But if you're trying to figure out what really works, you have to manually do it first. So, like, if you want to send 100 messages to the CEO, I think the better route is exactly what Jill's saying. But to give some people some tactics here, is I would write 100 messages to 100 CEOs and don't worry about automation. That might take you some time, but actually, and if you did 20 emails, personalized emails a day for 5 days, that's 100 emails. So if you did 10 in the morning, 10 in the afternoon, anyone here has time to do that if you're in a selling role, and you'd be able to quickly understand out of the 100, you're probably going to get some responses if you took your time, and the ones that got responses are the ones I would double down on. I just feel like right now, a lot of people, because they see AI or automation, et cetera, they want to move so fast, but you genuinely cannot move fast unless you have a thesis or some type of data to compound on. That's my advice almost every single time. I just don't think that people really want this advice, but it actually it's what you have to do to get these
Mhm.
other steps. I'm curious if you tell your team the same thing or you have a different lens on this.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I think there's so many easy ways to cheat. And I know everybody is
Yeah,
against spray and pray. I could probably go on LinkedIn and my feed would be don't spray and pray, don't spray and pray. But then that's what we're doing. But we're just, putting lipstick on a pig and like, oh, well, it was AI. Like, that's the new hot, awesome thing to use. Yeah, but peel back the lens. If you're not checking and you're just spamming people and there's no thought process to making that a personal, again, that 100 emails to 100 CEOs, like you have to put that intention behind it. So it's again just pulling back from, I don't want to say lazy, but maybe that's the word I want. Like, don't be lazy about it.
yeah.
Don't shoot for vanity metrics and just volume, because you're going to get marked as spam. You're probably going to be compromising your email domain. You might get social profiles shut down. And that damage is way worse than what you said. Take your time to write 20 really good emails a day. That's going to have a larger return.
So let's take a step back. I see shout out to Natoli stepping in here. I agree with you. Back to the basics. We literally were texting about this the other day, is that people just need to get back to the overall basics.
Mhm.
And Jesse as well, thanks for coming in. Data suggests referrals are still the best way to get in the door, 100%. But what we need to talk about, though, is what if you're just starting out new, you don't have any referrals, you don't know anyone. So that's where we're going to start, and then we're going to build towards that. So, Jill, we talked about a lot of things of what not to do, what makes us angry, but we're not here to rant on what makes us upset. We're here to help the people and what actually works. So what are the 3 things right now that you're seeing actually work with your team as you're going about Outbound? And if you can, as you go through this, tell us a little bit about the buyer personas you go after in what industries so people have context too.
Sure. So I work for a company called LHH, and my team, we have a specific focus on career transition and career mobility, which is outplacement. So should an organization be facing tough times and they do have to lay some folks off, then they come to us where we can give them the tools, resources, everything that they need, as well as a career coach. So that way they can land and be really prepared to successfully get into a new role quickly. So with that, we're going after folks in the HR space. We also have services specific for the C-suite. So that could be any C-level or executive title, but it's an emotional topic. So we have to be very particular about the sensitivity of the information that is getting shared. So that's how we're going after it. And it's really big on relationships. So for us, my team focuses on smaller accounts. So that's another team. But
You're back.
sorry, I know. I'm so sorry. Right when I was like in the middle of it, my internet, it keeps saying I lost connection. Sorry about that. But
Yep.
just picking up where I was. So things that are working, we are going after customers that are working with other lines of business. So that way there is an existing relationship we can speak with. So we automatically are doing our research, personalizing the conversation, and we're reiterating the trust that they already have with us. So that's one thing that's working for Outbound. And then we're also using data. You know, I feel like that's another term, like use data. But we're using data based on historical wins and where we can have the largest opportunities. So my team in particular, like we're going to be going after private equity. So we can not only service them, we know the disruption that happens if, you know, M&A happens. There's a lot of uncertainty sometimes. And then we can hit their portfolio companies. So that's where we're being strategic, that if we do it really right, the right way with these PEs, what if they have 100 portfolio companies, 500? We're opening massive doors. But if we do it sloppy, the wrong way, without intention, we could have just lost so much revenue. So we're slowing down to speed up. So those are just a couple things. And then one more thing too is for LinkedIn emails, they actually haven't worked for my team at all. Maybe it's the personas, the HR aspect where everyone, you know, they're on LinkedIn. That's where they hang out. They're getting slammed. So for the newest sequences that we have, we're actually not doing any messaging. Everything will be the connection request. And then upon acceptance, voice notes and videos. So we want it to be, you know, and not the like, I wrote your name on a paper. Hey, Morgan. Like, we're not doing that stuff. Like, it's just going to be that real human, like, hi, I'm a human. I'm saying your name. It's not a dry erase board. And, you know, we're just showing up that way. So that's what we're doing right now.
Those used to hit so hard back in the day. They don't now. But those really used to be like one of the best ways to stand out was writing on that thing. But like I think so many people did it that it just ruined everything.
I know that, like, it's all the same font. Like, you guys got me the first few times, but I'm like,
I know.
do you all have the same handwriting, or am I getting fooled right now?
Yeah, that one was really good for like I don't know a couple months, and then everyone absolutely ruined it. So so the thing is, I want to throw this on the audience question for you all. Put a 1 in the chat if you do get responses from LinkedIn InMails, not like the regular messenger, but LinkedIn InMails. And 2 if you so 1 if you do get responses in the LinkedIn InMails, 2 if you do not. I'm just seeing if anybody does. So Joe, the thing is like I run into very, very, very few people. This is what I coach and train on that actually get responses from InMails. I think it's one of the hardest. I think it's a hard channel because most people don't know the inbox even exists. And I think that's also probably a big obstacle with it. But I do agree with you that the videos and voice notes to ultimately stand out. I am curious though, like, do you find that the videos get more responses, voice notes? Is it the same? Are you leading with those? Like tactically, like what's going on there?
So, and I guess just for the audience, you do need to be connected with somebody, and I believe send from your cell phone in order to send voice notes and videos. So that's going to be one barrier, is we have to get that acceptance. Otherwise, we can't do it. But what really got us excited about it is I was using my personal perspective where I get prospected all the time. Like I was saying, like I get hit up from anything to buy office furniture, which I am not the persona for that, to financial, anything in between. But when I get that voice note, which I barely ever get, I'm curious. I'm like, oh, what does it say? Like, it's just that, just that unknown. Like, what is it? What's there? It's just mystery to me. And then even with the video, since I do get so few of them, I make sure to listen to it because I know that they put intention to it. Again, as long as I don't see my name on the screen. But, you know, it just, because again, it's so few, I make sure to pay attention to that because, like I said earlier, all the messages I get, it's the same opener, the same message. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're boring me. So, I don't know. That's why it's different. So that's where the video and voice notes catch my attention.
Yeah, I think that the thing is that like to your point, making them on your phone, making them more human is the key. Like as long as you can do that, people more likely, more open to hearing you out, hearing what you have to say, whatever it is, right? So I I genuinely do believe in that. And you mentioned another thing is like, okay, LinkedIn doesn't work as much for you all unless you're doing the videos or voice notes. Outside of LinkedIn, what are the other experiments that you're running? How are you leveraging maybe cold calling, for example?
So we're really lucky. We have a great tech stack over here. So we have areas where we can do call blitzes and cold call together. We can listen to other people's conversations live so that way we can give feedback. But really, it's just having, knowing what to say, having our cold call scripts ready, but also I give my reps a lot of autonomy that you don't have to verbatim read this, but have fun, but, let the script bring you back to get to that close. But it's just calling at the right times of day. We're not the type of org where it's 500 calls a day. Like we're more thoughtful with it. We pull up our research. So, phones are always great. We also have a lot of success. Granted, this is inbound, but we have a lot of live chat and chatbot where my team jumps in and we
Yep.
follow up with those folks afterwards too, because sometimes they fall off. But, being strategic with that is working. And then also the emails, we are, from all channels. That's where, I can confidently say I'm excited. We hit our goal. Nothing comes from LinkedIn though. So next time we chat, I'm excited to change that narrative. But
No, for sure.
it's just, and it's also not overthinking it. I think a lot of people get nervous and overthink it where, sometimes like if my team ever comes to me, they're like, oh, do you think I should say this? Do you think I should say that? Like, how do you think they'll respond? And I'm like, you're asking me how they would respond. I go, don't overthink it, send it, and we'll see how they respond. Like, we're not going to know until we know. Like, let the data do the talking. And one other thing I wanted to pivot back to for that voice note is, that's their profile. I mean, I'd hope it's not some fake profile on LinkedIn, but the reason that's also good is like maybe you have a wrong number, maybe you have an invalid email. You might not always know. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. But be really good with LinkedIn because for a fact, like if you want to reach out to Jill Bruno and you find my LinkedIn, like that is like a voicemail you're giving me and I'm going to get it. That is a video that is actually guaranteed deliverable to me. So keep that in mind too if other channels are maybe a little wonky or your data's not great.
Yeah, and I think some question here actually was going to be like something I was going to talk about, but biggest thing here is biggest challenge is getting a live person or even a real voice or a real voicemail for that person. Any tricks around that?
I wonder if that's a data provider challenge. I mean, I've seen, organizations typically use, 2 to 3, depending, who you're going after, but it almost sounds like you're maybe not getting mobile numbers. Maybe you're getting stuck with just automation. I don't know. Maybe it's your ICP, but to me, it just sounds like I'm blaming the numbers here. I don't know. What do you think, Morgan?
3 things on why that's happening. Number one is data, and that obviously is an organizational thing, but also it's like you could also find other data providers. I always recommend most companies at minimum have 2 at this point, just so that you can at least find the numbers. 2 is like the times you're calling. You might need to switch that up. You might be calling at the wrong times. And so that's something to take consideration. And then the third thing that's probably happening is the way you just said is the personas. You might be only calling a certain persona because you feel confident in calling that persona instead of maybe some other ones that could give you some insight. I think that like obviously you have your main buyer persona. Like if you sell to HR, you're gonna call HR, but there's also you could call other people in the company
Mm-hmm.
to find other ways to get in there. Like the goal at the end of the day is to start a conversation in the company to get me to the right people. If I got to talk to customer success to get to the sales team, I have and I will do that. I will. I'm just trying to find someone to talk to. So I'll call anyone. I think that's also the thing too, as well. I knew I was going to ask this question. What's the right time? The thing is, like, I'm going to give you this time, and then everyone's going to call it this time, and then I got to give you a new time. But the thing is, like, it's not actually about the time. It's about the psychology and the understanding of your buyer persona. It's actually what it more comes down to. So let me give you an example. I know if I want to talk to a sales leader, calling them in the middle of the day probably is not smart because they are in forecasts, they are on sales calls with their sales team to sell. So me calling them in the middle of the day probably isn't going to work. But if I call them at 6, 7 a.m. in the morning And I'm not telling you to wake up early. I'm just telling you like the facts. If I call someone 6, 7 a.m. in the morning, the likelihood of me getting them is higher because I'm getting them before they have to do that stuff. Now, let's do another example. A technical persona. Probably better them to call them at 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. And some of you may be like, that's crazy, but that's actually the time that they're coding, they're out doing stuff. And I actually probably can get them when they're not maybe as active, or maybe they're in a different stage than during the day, where maybe they have their phone turned off and they're just hard coding. Maybe they're doing light coding in the evening. So I base everything on calling on the psychology of the persona and like what would they be doing throughout the day. So I'm trying to catch them at a certain moment when they're not doing something as intensive, so I can actually call them. That's just the way to think about it. But if you want like a broad answer, it's like early in the morning, Friday evening. Those are good times as well. Those are things that I actually would be focusing on and I would be doing to get the most out of it.
And also, right before the hour or half hour, if you call, or maybe if a meeting ended a little bit earlier, trying to catch them before a meeting starts, that could also be some of those midday breaks. But I agree with what you're saying, because it really comes down to who they are. Like, I remember we struggled with this in a team I worked on years ago, and it was, folks out in the field, they're not at a desk. You
Yeah.
need their mobile number. And guess what? Like, they're digging in a hole and they might not even hear their cell phone ring. And guess what? They're going to be pretty ticked off if you interrupted their project on a cold call. So that's not going to be the best time. You like hit them early, hit them late, because otherwise you just ticked off someone. But they were an aggressive persona.
Yeah,
So,
that's,
I know.
that
A
is
little
a
rough around the edge,
aggressive
but good stuff.
persona for sure. Dave asked this question, and I think it varies on what you're doing in your deal size or whatever. But what number of calls do you think is reasonable?
So I guess it depends with or without a dialer, a parallel dialer. So I'm going to do this from like, I'm a human hitting click to dial. I think at minimum 50. And then, if you max out at 100, I think that's a really good pace. But, it depends. You may have some days you're higher, some days you're lower. So if you look at it from a weekly perspective, that gives you time to catch up and, free yourself of a burden of only worrying about that number. But, if you are in a full prospect, and this is a full prospecting role, assuming you're not also closing and doing other things, I think, again, between 50 and 100 is a really good sweet spot.
I like that. We have another question here that says, new iOS 26 and the call screening feature from Apple. Apple prompts you to turn it on when you upgrade. Any thoughts on how that might change cold calling?
I have no idea what that is.
The screen, like the new screening thing that Apple has, when it's like, hey, like, who are you? And you gotta like announce yourself before you.
Am I living under a rock?
You might be. No, they announced this it was like maybe a month ago. And now like you have to, like, when you call somebody, like they like screen you with the new Apple update.
Oh, I did not know that. So apologies that I cannot provide insight. I need to get out from under my rock, but I didn't even know that was a thing.
Homework for the weekend.
Well, now I know. Let me jot that down. Thank you for the question. No, I'm sorry. I did not realize that was a thing.
Yeah, I'll be really direct with you all. Like the answer is yes, it's going to change cold calling. I don't know because I haven't been screened, so I have no tactical information for you. And then also as well, I have not turned it on as well. So I have no idea. But I would just say that, yeah, to Brian's point, it's basically just going to become another voice note. So I just think at the end of the day, you better just make sure that like whatever you have to say that screening is compelling enough for them to actually let you through. I think it's just going to be like a voicemail upfront thing that you're going to have to figure out. I don't have enough information though to give like a really good answer on it.
I mean, maybe there's a way that you can just, create curiosity and make sure that it doesn't come across as a pitch you're trying to sell, provide value. That's what I would personally do. So that way people feel compelled to either answer or, recognize your name. So that's what I would do.
So I'm gonna flip this to you, and then I want to flip to something else after this. But I think this is a really good question because it goes into what actually works with Outbound, and I'm curious on your thoughts, and then also from a buyer perspective on your thoughts on this too. So Jacob's asking, what do you think clients care about when selecting a vendor or provider? I found clients you work with, case studies, etc., as the biggest reason a company might go with you. I have voiced this to my team on more case studies. So I know a lot of people say stack your case studies, stack your results. What's your take on this? Like when you're picking a vendor and you got all these tech stack things you're going to use, do you care more about like how someone sold you? Do you actually care about these use cases? Do you have your team leveraging use cases in their cold calling, in their outbound? Like, what is your take here?
I mean, it's a combination of everything, but what it ultimately comes down to is I want to know you understand me, you understand my role, you know, and those potential challenges. You're being relevant to how you can solve that. Are you saving me time, money, sanity? But that's first and foremost. But also, it's going to come down to I need to hear stories, whether it's case study, verbal. I want to hear the passion that I know you've worked with folks in my industry, companies of my size, and somebody similar, because that would give me confidence to know, I wouldn't be your first person, the first organization in this industry. And, now we're going to have all these hiccups and curveballs. So that's really important is have you worked with a use case that's very similar to mine and you're not scaring me off if I feel that I don't fit that profile. But that, and I think that also comes into the human element where you mentioned, like, is it the person, is it this? And I know there's so much out there like, oh, people buy from people. And like, yes and no. I mean, I'd hope that you don't have somebody who's going to be rude or unprofessional to you, because of course that could turn you away. But you want somebody who cares. They're not an order taker. They're not just going through the motions with the transaction. Like, do you feel that passion? And to me, that goes a really long way when you're working with a sales rep of, if they care, that helps you care as opposed to just being bland. I don't know.
No, I agree. So the thing with this is, and we're going to talk about this in a minute in AI. One thing I think someone posted this or something of that nature, and then I use like the new Chat GPT 5, which by the way, if you're not in the new Chat GPT 5, this thing is absolutely crazy. I'm like, what is going on? And the cool thing is, obviously, you have to be mindful of integrity of your data when I say this. So just be mindful of that. But a cool thing that you can do is you could literally dump in all your case studies and have AI filter it by industry. And once it filters by industry, you could then create all your outbound messaging and your talk tracks around this. So you could be like, hey, team, we're going to call manufacturing today. We have 3 really strong use cases in manufacturing that work. I remember as an SDR when I started memorizing case studies for certain industries, my conversion rates on cold calls would skyrocket because I could speak. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, we worked with a company similar to this. This is exactly what we saw. Here's what happened," and it just really resonated with that person because like I had a story to tell. And I do agree that people buy from people, but I think people buy from people that they trust at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, and also trust that they can get the results. Like I
Yeah.
can like you, but I don't. You may not be able to get me results.
Yeah.
Those are 2 different things, and I think that's what's important in the market is like understand your stories across the board and leverage AI, what stories you already have to do that. That's one of the things that we're working on right now with AMP Social is taking stories and being like, what stories map to each one and how can we keep stacking stories? That's our whole thing right now, stacking
Mhm.
stories. And I encourage other people to do that as well.
Yeah, I love that.
So far we're about like 30 minutes in. If you've been enjoying this so far, let us know in the chat if you're enjoying this LinkedIn Labs. I got the DJ horn. Yeah,
Go.
hey, we got the DJ horn. We're lit. So if you're enjoying it so far, let us know in the chat. And if you have questions, keep asking your questions, and we will answer them. So Dave, I believe you'll maybe touch on this a little bit. What are your thoughts on auto dialers? And then we're going to dive into some AI talk. But what's your overall thoughts on auto dialers? Dave asked this question, and then we'll move forward to some AI stuff.
I think if used appropriately and the right way, it can move mountains. I know there's so many auto dialers, power dialers. If you know that your strength and where you're booking meetings and your focus is for the phone, when you get into that mindset and you're just plowing through calls effectively, you can maximize the volume the right way and see really great results because, law of average, the more of something you do, the more results you should see within reason, has to be the right way. But, I'm all for it if you know how to use it. Because on the other side, if you're uncertain how to use it, you could flop pretty badly on the phone and then you lost the sale before you even introduced yourself. So, practice it. Have your role plays. I know some tools even have like the AI role plays where maybe you can, jump in quickly. But yeah, I'm all for it.
Now the question is, are you all for AI and why?
am. I think when AI came out, everyone was so scared. Like, it's going to take my job. Like, what is it? And it's funny. For today, I actually prepped the definition because I think that we use AI. Everybody uses it differently. And I want to bring to light I used AI to tell me what AI is.
Yeah.
So artificial intelligence is technology that enables computers and machines to simulate processes typically associated with human intelligence, such as learning, reasoning, problem solving, perception, and decision making. So we're all in sales. Why would we not want something to help us with that? I don't read that as a threat, like my job is gone. I read that as an opportunity of, wow, how can I become more efficient? How can I use my time better to maximize results while also reducing burnout? And I'm going to say that again, reducing burnout. I think that's a big thing that in sales, sometimes we don't know when to stop. You know, we're the first to log on, the first to log off. What if you got some of those hours back in your day? You're now with your family doing things you enjoy and just you're going to show up more present the next day. So that's what I lean on AI for. And also, at my company, I'm fortunate. We have a lot of resources that have done company wide training. So they've really opened my perspective. And one thing we preach here is it's a 10-80-10 rule. Put in 10% of the work, feed in that prompt, be overly specific, give examples. Sometimes I write prompts and it's a full page, and that's okay. But put in that 10%. And then maybe I'll end it with like, write me 6 cold call emails or whatever my objective is. Let it do 80% of the work. And then now let me go back and spend another 10% of my time. Like, let me reread it. Does it make sense? Don't just assume it's going to be perfect, because ultimately, again, it's going to mimic you and act human. It's not a human. So just make sure, if it puts, I hope all is well in there, like you better tell it not to, but to do the right things. And it is such a game changer. And I wish that I had a lot of these generative aspects and research aspects when I was early in my sales career. Like when I started as an SDR, I had Salesforce Classic and like a click to dial. I didn't think it got better. And now it's like, if I could blow out sequences and messaging, oh my God, if only my commission would have been much more back then.
Yeah.
But I'm all for it.
Okay, so give us you went through like, okay, this is what you're all for it. You're not against it. So could you give us a use case right now that's working in terms of a prompt that you're using with your team that's like just working very well that you can share with everybody?
Yeah, I came prepared and these are verbatim examples of, I talked about my team. We are going to be going really strategically to private equity. So I go, what are the portfolio companies associated with? And then I actually insert the business, their website, because sometimes business names can seem like others. So I don't want any confusion. I insert the business name and any common themes that I should be aware of as I prospect into these accounts for outplacement and C-level mentoring services. So that's not even that long of a prompt, but it's going to spit me back results that says, okay, here are the portfolio companies. They're primarily, ex-employee counts in this location in healthcare, and I also, one thing I want to say is I use perplexity.ai. I really appreciate their research. And then I have found that Chat GPT is better for generative and for the messaging. So that's just my own personal take. But again, from that prompt, it's going to pinpoint exactly how I should prospect to them, what matters, what's publicly available within seconds. And now I know when I'm cold calling into these folks, I know what I'm talking about. And it was I use the same prompt. All I'm doing is cycling in a new email address, and I have everything that I need about, the research, their portfolio companies, and what matters most. So that's been huge for us, especially again with, some of these companies have hundreds of portfolio organizations beneath them. Do you know how long that would take to research? Like
forever.
You might not even get through one a day. So yeah, it's as simple as that prompt I just read.
That's awesome. And I think that with AI, exactly, you're just finding things that take a very long time and expediting it. So you gave us something that's working now. What's a prompt that you're working on right now? Probably maybe it's not completed, or it's a use case that you're working on with your team right now when it comes to AI that's helping your outbound and making things actually work.
So that actually is what we're just spearheading now. So that one has been working, and I would say, honestly, just to answer your question, just being honest, that's really what we've been working on is these prompts, and also just getting sequence creation that's going to be really specific based on either the persona or the industry or the organization. So it's just testing it and feeding it. And I would say what's working too is just adding in more. I had noticed that I didn't add enough in when I first started. I'd be like, write me an outbound sequence. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Explain what you do in your own words, put in website links, put in case studies, put in research, upload customer lists and say, of these 50 names, who are the top 10 I should go after? So I guess, as again, my prompts came from sentences to paragraphs.
Yeah.
That's been a huge learning for my team is don't be scared. You can't feed enough information into it and it's going to learn and grow with you. So that's again been I would say my 2025 learning is give it, there's never too much you could feed it.
Yeah, you need to feed it. I'm trying to think of a good example of this, but I don't know what it is. But you need to feed it as many things as possible. You
Mm-hmm.
literally need to. You need to. Have you been to Golden Corral?
We don't really have them in Jersey.
Okay, I don't know if anybody else in here has been to Golden Corral. It's a buffet. You need to like treat AI as if you're going to the buffet. Like you need to feed it as much as you can, relevant things. Like I have fed it. Like I fed it some websites that I really liked, and I was like, "Can you just give me the breakdown on what this is?" And then it would like literally would just give me the entire flow. You can feed it slides you've really liked, how someone talked. Like it's not just about having a conversation; it's about what can I feed it that's already great, and it can break down the reasons on why it's great, and then you just add in your stuff, and then now you can have something great. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest thing that I've learned about AI is that like anything that is good, I can take and I can make it my own. There obviously are levels of expertise that like you still have to continuously learn yourself, but there's a lot of fundamental and baseline things that you can get out of it. And that's what I tell people to do. Even like uploading your customer list or not your prospecting list, really your target account list. You can actually have it do research, find the key target accounts. You can have it read the 10K report. Like it can do so much without
Mm-hmm.
you really have to do anything. You can just literally put it in deep research mode, come back, and then everything's filled out. So
Mm-hmm.
there's just steps that you can take now that are just so fundamentally different.
And also push back on it. That was another learning where, make this shorter, make this, witty, make it serious. You have to tell it what to do. So also don't settle for whatever that first reply is. I mean, and this is more from a generative perspective, less of the research, but,
Yeah.
condense the notes, make it shorter, layman terms only. So it's okay to keep pushing back. And then that's going to also understand your style where you're going to notice you push back less because it's getting to know you and what you're actually looking for out of the tool.
Yeah, I found that also as well. Like, tell it to be brutally honest and to tell you the brutal truth as well. I have found that to be very very helpful, and it may hurt your feelings, whatever, but like it will give you the actual answers you want, and
Yeah.
that's what all we want at the end of the day. So we got about like 10 minutes left here. If people have any lasting questions, throw them in here. Brian, I'll answer your question real quick. Yes, if you play RuneScape or video games, it's going to make your life a lot easier. Just put it that way, because your brain is just geared towards the reward. Jess's question here: new BDRs or SDRs, what is one thing you would tell them to master? Okay, what is one thing you would tell an SDR to master right now?
So I tell all my SDRs most of the game is up here. So I would say before you're even talking about calls, email scripts, the skills, master your mentality. Get ready for rejection, get ready for, high highs, low lows, and remember to be kind to yourself. If you learn that earlier than later, that could make or break your sales career. So be kind to yourself. Take failures as lessons and opportunities for you to learn for next time and just know it's a hard job. If this was not a hard job, you know, we wouldn't have these successful careers. So that's first and foremost is work to be mentally tough because there's good days and there's going to be some really crappy days. So again, repeating it, be kind to yourself and just keep learning.
Yeah, I would say it's mastering your self-talk, but it's just mastering your self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
because really the energy and everything that you bring is part of selling. So if you have a terrible energy, right, that's not going to work. So that's what I would recommend people to do. So I echo what Jill is saying. And then Jacob's question, very similar, which is, what do you think is important for sales reps to focus on to position themselves for the next 2 to 5 years? And then Yago, I see your question. Yes, this is recorded.
Sorry, I froze a little bit. Can you repeat that? My
No,
internet is hating me today.
you're good. You're good. It said, what do you think is important for sales reps to focus on to position themselves for the next 2 to 5 years?
I think this is a great question because there's a lot that could happen in 2 to 5 years. So I would say understand what your motivators are, understand what you love about your job, be honest with yourself about things you don't particularly care for, because sales skills can translate into so many other departments. Or there's also, we're really privileged that sales, there's so many ways to move up. But at the same point, you could also stay put as an individual contributor and still make a lot of money. So understand, what life do you want in that 2 to 5 years? Is it to understand, maybe you're an SDR. That's an entry level role to some degree. Do you like sales? Maybe you like marketing. You would crush it as a recruiter. Sometimes I've seen them, they jump into the data analytics side because they like the marketing perspective and they want to help get it better. So get a good grasp of that and also understand, if you want management, why? Is that something that you're trying to strive for in 2 to 5 years? Because understanding individual contributor life versus manager life, that's very different and often maybe not what you think. So I would say find your mentors. I am so big on mentors for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. So anything that sparks your interest, whether it's internal, I encourage you to do internal and external. Have all of those conversations now. So that way, when you do decide to stay in that role, you feel good about your decision. Or if you're really going to put yourself out there and try to earn a promotion or a lateral move, whatever that is, you can feel confident in that. So I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but just get as much exposure as you can so you know you're on the right path.
I would say what we already talked about, focusing on understanding AI. You don't need to be an AI expert, just understand what it is, how you can use it for yourself, and things of that nature. And I think another thing is like, I think it's important for people to have a high level of curiosity, especially understanding like, do you actually like learning about your industry? Because if you do, then it's going to be easier for you to sell it. And that's also my opinion as well. So, Jacob,
Yeah.
hope that helped answer your question. Jess, hope we helped answer your question as well. And Brian, hope I answered your question. As we have the last few minutes, Jill, where can people find you if they have more questions? And if people do have questions, this is the last chance here. Last chance questions if you want to do that immediately, but also as well, any lasting things that you want to say, Jill?
So I recognize I didn't put my last name in here. So although it just says Jill, my name's easy. It's Jill Bruno. So if you find me on LinkedIn, please reach out. Do not be generic. I will ignore you. No, I'm just kidding. But if you have any questions, just, call out like today's session with Morgan. So that way I will definitely get back to you. But that's one way to find me. And yeah, whatever I can do to support you guys. But that's where you can find me.
I think the main takeaways are take a step back. Don't try to go too fast with outbound, as you said. Really understand the ICP and how you want to reach out to those buyers. From an AA perspective or AI perspective, finding those use cases and prompts that you can do as well to make sure you get in front of those people. And then another thing is videos, voice notes. We've heard that a lot of times on LinkedIn Labs, and hope people start experimenting with that. As we have our last question here, what's the one thing you would tell someone new to sales in a BDR role?
Start filling your LinkedIn feed now. So if you see any lists or, when it's like, oh, the best people to follow, that's how I started building my LinkedIn out. I actually used to, but this is before I had Sales Nav. I would maximize how many connections I could send, because if there was a list of top 100 people, I'm like, I want to see what they have to say. So start filling your feed with valuable insight, particular to the BDR role, and you're going to get your snippets, your tips, your tricks. If you actually go to my profile, I created a tips and tricks for breaking into sales. So there's a lot of good things for SDRs and BDRs to know. It's free. So just put $0. It makes you add an amount, but like that's my gift to you. So please jump on my profile and download that for more tips and tricks. But you gotta, surround yourself with the right people, the right mentality, and people you can learn from. What is the saying? If you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yep.
Make your room LinkedIn where you can learn from the folks in your audience. So that's going to be huge, and put intention into it. Read, show up, be accountable. But there's so many free resources out there. So, even just attending this live session, like you're doing the right thing. There's LinkedIn learning courses, but if you can focus on, learning one thing each day, you're going to be on the right path.
Amazing. Well, Jill, thank you so much for taking your time with us.
For having me.
And I hope everyone walked away with, again, like you just said, one thing that they can do over the weekend to improve for next week. And again, thanks so much for taking your time. Thanks to everyone else for taking their time. You'll have a great rest of your weekend.
Bye.